Look, I can't help but think that now might be a good time for a little fire and ice.
Did you not know it's never a good time for fire and ice?
What happens when you mix fire and ice?
Warm water, baby.
It's bubbling, baby. Warm water. Warm water.
Good song. I like when we start off with good songs, don't you?
I always do. It is Saturday afternoon. It is lunchtime here, and it's time for Fire and Ice. Mike Tipton, Brandon the Iceman Cone, David Halpern hanging out with us right now as well. A little bit later on, we are going to have the radio voice, play-by-play man of the Chicago Bulls. Chuck Swirsky is going to be joining us to talk about NBA Finals, or not NBA Finals, Western Conference Finals, Game 7. My San Antonio Spurs taking the Oklahoma City Thunder to the brink. I am terrified of this game, Brandon, but we will talk about that coming up here in just a little bit. Brandon, before we get started, let everyone know about the specials today.
All right. So, sorry about that. It was a little loud.
A little bit.
My ears, I can't hear. It actually, they still have the $10 endless appetizer. So you could get your fried pickles, you could get your cheese sticks, you can get your onion rings, you can get a little bit of this and that. $10, and then if you add over a few people, it's like an extra $2.50 a person. That's a hell of a deal. Happy hour, late night, 3 to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, 9 to 11. Every day, $2 off. All drafts and margaritas, $2. Signature cocktails, $3. Shorty shots, $6 apps, including pretty much the fried pickles, the hatch queso, the bacon cheddar jumbo tots. They're huge. What a notch, man. So, you know what? Our favorite thing, and we put them out of business, unfortunately, is the endless appetizer thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no. With all the bottomless apps that they got, it's one of the most amazing things that they could have done. Also, a horrible idea for them to let us know that, we got bottomless apps, and all you got to do is pay X amount of money, and the two of us just sit there like evil villains clicking our fingers together like, oh, bottomless apps, you say.
Right. That sounds like a good idea for us. Come hungry.
And then a little bit later on, Brandon and I are going to order it in order to celebrate the summer that is coming up here. The red, white, and booze lemonade, brother. It sounds amazing. It looks amazing, the picture of it. I can't wait to see it here on the table in front of us. You can see it right there.
It looks
like,
good, and it's very patriotic.
It does look good.
And it is almost the best time of the year. As you noted, the summer is, let's face it, it's summer. I mean, it's going to be 100 pretty soon. And, the kids are getting out of school and all that. School's almost out for summer. And you got to be able to have a patriotic lemonade. Absolutely. It looks great.
The most patriotic lemonade.
It is.
Many people are saying it is the most patriotic lemonade you could possibly have.
Sounds good to me.
Oh, and speaking of amazing things that are about to join us here on Fire and Ice, Chuck Swirsky, the voice of the Chicago Bulls, joining us right now. I'm so glad that you joined right now, Chuck, because I've been trying to hold in my excitement about NBA Western Conference Finals Game 7. What are your thoughts on everything that's been going on so far with San Antonio and the Oklahoma City Thunder?
Well, I think you're going to see, number one, incredible ratings tonight. This is a game that everyone wanted to see. They wanted to see it go 7 games against two of the powerhouses in the NBA, two teams that, again, things can change quickly, as we know, in the NBA. Things come at you pretty fast. But the nucleus of these two teams and how young they are and how gifted they are, I think they've got 10-year runs in them. And again, things can happen overnight, as we've seen. Just when you think a club is going to ride and a nice little run, an injury happens, players want more money to get moved, chemistry changes. So, let's enjoy the moment, and the moment is tonight.
Yeah, and speaking of the moment, I think that everybody is excited, Chuck, to see how this series has progressed. Victor Wembanyama has been an absolute phenomenal player at such a young age. Talk about what he's done for the NBA and how he's been able to lead this team, a very young team, to close to at least being potentially back to the promised land.
Yeah, and great points. And by the way, he's only 22.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he is so mature beyond years. It's unbelievable. And the way he handles, not only with pressure, but the poise he plays with is something else. I mean, I think, and this is going to be a bold statement, and it's really early in his career, but if he stays healthy, and I really want him to stay healthy, but if he stays healthy, in my opinion, he will be the greatest player ever to play the sport.
Wow,
That's
a bold statement. Considering you considering obviously that you're the play-by-play voice of the Bulls, and we know the GOAT, of course, played for the Bulls for many years and led them to 6 championships. But that's a heck of a statement, Chuck.
Well, again, I'm putting an asterisk if he stays healthy. Right. Jordan, with the exception of Jordan's second year in the league, he was healthy, and he would play 80, 82 games. And Michael Jordan right now, obviously, is the greatest player ever to put on a pair of shoes. All I'm saying is, if this man, Victor Wembanyama, can stay healthy and continue to move up the ladder with his skill set, he is going to break so many records. It's unbelievable. He will own Defensive Player of the Year award. And in fact, maybe one day down the road, they're going to rename the Defensive Player of the Year award to the Wemby Award. Because I think it's very I mean, I am so high on this young man, and I've never seen a player who can change and alter the trajectory of a game on both ends of the floor and do it seamlessly, where he can not only obviously at the rim, because, you know, it's 7'5", he can finish with an 8-foot wingspan. But how many times have we seen in this series, guys? So Oklahoma City or whoever San Antonio has played, the players dribble in the paint. They see Victor standing in the semicircle, and what do? They dribble it outside the lane, and it changes their entire strategy when he's on the floor. And I love Luke Cornett. I think we mishandled him with the Bulls. I'm a huge fan of Luke Cornett, and I hope, you know, he can win a ring. He can win a ring and win another ring with Boston and the Spurs. But let me tell you what, when he's on the floor, they go right in the lane against him. And he gets that. I mean, no one's going to replicate what Wembanyama can do. But when Victor is on the floor, the whole image of X's and O's changed radically.
The best thing about it, I call that move whenever you got a guy going into the lane, they see Wemby, I call that move a nope. He leads the league and nope, I ain't doing that. Like, I ain't getting my shot sent back. Someone else can have that happen to them. So let's talk a little bit more now about like the Oklahoma City Thunder. They are the defending champion, and the, I guess, mindset of a lot of fans right now all throughout the league is that they get, you know, calls. There's a lot of flops happening, a lot of foul calls going their way. My whole mindset, even as a San Antonio Spurs fan, my whole mindset is the champ always gets the call. So if you want to get rid of it, you got to dethrone the guys. What is your mindset on what's going on with Oklahoma City, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and the perceived perception of flopping?
Well, here's the thing. I think this is going to be addressed in the offseason big time. But as long as the standard has been set with players, and then the officiating becomes where they see a player over and over, and they see habits. And so in this case, I have no problem with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I really don't, because he's playing and he gets calls. So what's he supposed to do? Get fouled and go to the refs and say, hey, listen, you know what? He touched me or he grazed me, and so I'm going to the line. As long as the officials are calling it, then you know what? He's playing within the rules. Now, next year, if in the officiating meeting, which they hold in the offseason, and they're going to run by play after play after play, they may change the whole mindset of an official and the staff. And maybe next year, who knows if Shai Gilgeous-Alexander will get those calls. I don't know. But all I can tell you is he is an incredible talent. And to this day, and I understand why the Clippers made this move, because they thought that Paul George was the missing piece. And with Kawhi Leonard, they were going to form the nucleus of a win now mindset in the picture. But that trade with all those draft picks and player swaps for the draft, and then on top of that, the way Shea has played and the way Paul George, who's not even with the ball club anymore, and he was getting hurt and missing games, like not just 5 or 8 games, he's missing 20 to 30 games. And I mean, it's going to go down as one of the worst trades in the history of the league.
So tonight's game 7, then, what is going to be the outcome? And is there a particular better matchup that the NBA would rather see at this point against the Eastern Conference champion Knicks?
Well, I mean, listen, the Knicks are in it. So whether San Antonio wins, because then you have Victor playing against the Knicks. If Oklahoma City wins, that storyline's going to be, okay, the defending champs, because the Knicks are going to have 9 days off. Now, as an NBA player, that's probably too long. But let me tell you what, there is no healthy player right now in the NBA. If you are a top 8 player in the NBA on your club, you're dealing with something. So when you have 9 days off and you can get, imaging taken and they can say, okay, like, right now, I think you should not practice for 3 or 4 days. And then we're going to do another MRI on you and see where we're at. Or maybe they'll say, hey, we're going to shut you down for 2-3 days and then get you back on the court. Because all these players have soft tissue issues because the way the game's played now. However, I'll say this. When you're gone 9 days, you are a bit rusty. And that first game could be really ugly for New York. But I think the NBA got what they wanted tonight and also for the NBA Finals. Because, I mean, the Knicks are in it. And, of course, it's the biggest market in the league. And even people who had no idea who Jalen Brunson was a month and a half, 2 months ago, is now on the Knicks bandwagon. I mean, like Celebrity Row at the Garden. I mean, all of a sudden they become Knicks fans. And I mean, Ben Stiller has been a Knicks fan. John McEnroe has been a Knicks fan. Spike Lee obviously is, Mr. Nick. So, but all these celebs now are coming out. It's just whatever.
So let's look at it from that standpoint, right? Like, I'm one of these people. I love basketball. I know it's sacrilegious being here in Texas to say I like basketball more than I like football, but that is the case with me. I love my basketball, right? And I always say that the NBA is better whenever the New York Knicks are actually relevant. New York now being in the NBA final for the first time since 1999, what kind of jolt does that give the league now?
Well, I mean, it gives the league a great jolt because of the TV revenues and the ratings. And so what happens is when the ratings are high in a market, whether it's Chicago, New York, LA, Houston, Dallas, I mean, to name the top 5 markets in the NBA. So what happens is from a local standpoint, so the sales staffs go out then to major corporations and say, look at these numbers for the Knicks, the Bulls, the Lakers, Dallas, Houston, whomever. And they'll say, if you're a part of our programming, the eyeballs, the optics are going to be on your product. And that's why it's important that big market teams succeed because of just the populace in that particular franchise radius. And that's why it's important that the Bulls become relevant. And I'll say this. I think Michael Reinsdorf did a very bold move, and he had to make this move. Listen, AK and Mark got the jobs, and you know what? AK had a great reputation when he was hired. He was well-liked within the circles of the league. People in Denver loved him and respected him. And unfortunately, it didn't work. And so that doesn't mean that AK is a bad evaluator of talent. It just didn't work. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And he went into the office every day hoping to make the ball club better. But this is pro sports. And as you know, you got to win or you got to turn it around. And, we were stuck in this play-in tournament or just barely making the play-in tournament. and it just never materialized where we could see, as a fan or as somebody like myself with the media as broadcasters for the Bulls, where we could see incremental uptake. And because we didn't get the upswing and that little, pulse of activity where you could say, all right, you know what, we can get that 5th seed this year, or we're going to move up 3 or 4 seeds in the East. It didn't happen. So I wish them well, but I give Michael Reinsdorf a lot of credit for making this move. And with all indications, I mean, they haven't made a trade. They haven't done a draft pick yet, but I'm very encouraged by what people tell me in the New Orleans market and Atlanta. He was only in Atlanta for a year, I believe, but his reputation is superb. And so let's see what Bryson can do, and we'll go from there.
Chuck, you've been broadcasting Bulls games for many, many years now with Bill Wennington. And, of course, previously you worked with the Toronto Raptors. Being part of such a historic organization, what is your favorite Michael Jordan story of all time, whether or not it's been a personal story or just any Michael Jordan story?
Wow. Okay, well, I want to be very clear. I was not the Bulls broadcaster when Michael Jordan played for the Bulls. In fact, I did the Bulls PA for 3 years prior to Jordan. And then the late, great Dan Fabian, who was the program director at WGM Radio, he came to me and said, okay, here's the story. You either stay as public address announcer for the Bulls, or you are going to remain as play-by-play announcer for DePaul. And that was a tough choice because I was starting to miss some DePaul games. And this is what I wanted to do since I was a little boy. And so even though I missed the Jordan years as the public address announcer for the Bulls, you know what? I'm a big believer that God has a plan for all of us. And I think in my journey, I needed seasoning as a play-by-play announcer at first the collegiate level, and then from DePaul to the University of Michigan. And without the University of Michigan, I don't get an opportunity to call play-by-play in the NBA. Without DePaul, I don't get the Michigan job. So all these things fell into place. And it's not, I mean, God gave me the gifts and to make something of this, but the blueprint that he put in my life, you can see, that has unfolded. So in answer to your question, I just think that, that Michael Jordan, when I was around him as a reporter, there was about maybe 4 or 5 years into his run with the Bulls, and they had not knocked the door yet. They were playing Detroit more or less and Cleveland every year in the playoffs before the Bulls finally beat Detroit and went to the finals in '91 to beat the Lakers in the first, three-peat. And then, there was a 2-year gap. And then, the Bulls won another three-peat. So there is, after the game, there are tons of reporters in old Chicago Stadium. The locker rooms, it was almost like a phone booth. It was so small and compacted. So Jordan would always, before he spoke with reporters, he always took a shower and got dressed. He always dressed impeccably. It was always a suit and a tie. None of this, where I'm walking out with a t-shirt or baggy jeans or whatever. I mean, he wanted to look like Michael Jordan because he knew everyone was looking at him, including, by the way, his sponsors. And Michael Jordan wanted to look great, which he did. He would put his sport coat on, his suit coat, tie, boom. He talked to reporters. Here's the key. So I'm watching this, and there are rings around him. So you had the first maybe 4 or 5 people right there next to him. Behind that ring of reporters, another circle of people. Then behind them, so there were probably about 4 or 5. And when the first group left, the second group would move in. And it was almost like a wave. One would leave, the next would come in. So finally, there was a young man with a 1-game press pass, and he was in high school. And after everyone had left, Jordan is grabbing his bag to leave the locker room. And I will never forget this young man, you could tell he was nervous and he was shaking. And again, dealing with this, there was no tweet, there was no social media, none of that stuff. The cell phones had just come out, a little bit. It was starting a little bit. They looked like a phone box, where it was just so big. But so bottom line is this young reporter or young high school student goes up to Michael Jordan and he says, Mr. Jordan, I'm doing a school project. Do you have time for, 3 or 4 quick questions? Michael Jordan looks at him and says, let's do it. Now, he could have easily said, hey, you know what? I just spent 30 minutes. And, Jordan had his people with him. He could have easily said, hey, listen, you know what? I gave everything that I had in this post-game press conference. And yet he took the time to talk to him. And to me, that was the best.
That's so amazing to hear whenever you get athletes that do stuff like that, because you're right. 99% of the time, the athlete's going to be like, nah, I got something better to do. I'm going to go move on my way. And to hear, all the stories about Jordan, right? Like you hear the competitive monster that he was, of just the way how he flowed through the air and did all these things. But Jordan, the person, is such a better, was always looked at as like a really good, great person, especially whenever it came to charitable events and things like that as well. So hearing a story like that really, really does make me happy. Okay, so I wanted to ask you this, because Brandon, obviously that's the low-lying fruit asking you about Michael Jordan. I want to ask you about my guy Vince Carter, okay? Because now I know you were there with Toronto from the outset. Vince Carter was one of the most amazing athletes at the time. Do you have a Vince Carter story?
Well, I got a lot of Vince Carter stories. I mean, the Vince Carter, you can look this up. The Rick Pitino quote where he said, Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish ain't walking through the door. That was after a Raptor game with the Celtics in Boston. And Vince Carter hit the game-winning shot from the right wing. And it happened in front of the Boston bench. And that was an amazing game. And Rick Pitino just went ballistic after the game. So about 4 or 5 days later, and you can look this up, 4 or 5 days later, maybe it was a week, a little over a week, we're in LA, and the Bulls are playing the Clippers. And on the inbounds pass, Tracy McGrady gave it up to Vince, and Vince hit a game-winning shot. So 2 game-winning shots in a period of about less than a week, or maybe a little over a week, against Boston and the Clippers. And his dunking every night, he abused the rim. He's doing 360s. He's doing windmills. He's doing the tomahawk. It was like incredible. And so after the Clipper game, we were in those days, I was doing radio and TV and simulcast, and we were at midcourt with our broadcast table. And so we got Vince to come on afterwards, and he was on for about 4 or 5 minutes. And I see Bill Walton, the late, great Bill Walton, rest his soul, who became a friend of mine. So he's walking past us. And on the air, I said, Bill, we are live right now in Toronto. Can you just put a headset on and talk about tonight's game? Well, he could have easily, just like Jordan, he could have easily said no, but he didn't. And so we're live in Toronto. He puts the headset on and he goes, Vince Carter, the greatest player I've ever seen. Bill, the hyperbole, and he would embellish things all the time. If you ever saw the Pac-12 network, they would have this obscure guard from like Arizona State or whatever. I can't begin to tell you he is a first-round pick. Billy's averaging 2 points a game. He's only in 6th game of the year. I know that, but I like him. But anyway, so Bill puts on the headset, raved about Vince. And so, I mean, I've got so many stories, game-winning shots. When he left, it was a very tough day for all of us in Toronto. Sure. I don't think we'll ever get the real story because, there's so many sides to this story. But the good news is that he's back with his jersey retired in Toronto. He is, in my opinion, the greatest Raptor of all time, with all due respect to Kyle and DeMar DeRozan. And they will have their jerseys retired. But Vince had to have his go up in the rafters as the first Raptor to do so.
Chuck Swirsky, the radio voice of the Chicago Bulls, joining us here live on Fire and Ice. Chuck, speaking of a story, here's your ex picture here of yourself, if they can see that. And Pope Leo, you were giving him a jersey. I don't even know if we can see that.
No, it's not focusing in on it. It's
terrible. I'm sorry. But anyways, I got a great picture, and we talked about it at my brother's wedding. Yourself and Pope Leo, you're giving him a Bulls jersey that says Pope Leo back when the Bulls played in Rome last season. Boy, that must have been really something for you to get to meet the Pope and talk to a little Chicago hoops. A Chicagoan, a fellow Chicagoan's the Pope. What was that like for you?
Well, this came out of nowhere, really. Well, let's back up. So almost a year ago, so we know that Pope Leo is the first American Pope. And then on that day, we learned that he's from Chicago. And so, of course, right after he was named Pope and the word got out he's from Chicago, people said, hey, I've known Robert Provost and he's a big Cubs fan. So on social media, they have the picture of the new Pope with the Cubs jersey that was superimposed, Photoshop. And then all of a sudden, one of his brothers says, no. He's a White Sox fan. And, we've got the pictures to prove it. So about maybe 3 weeks later, and this is all true, I get an invite to MC the celebration of the new Pope, Pope Leo XIV, at White Sox Park and Guaranteed Field. And so family members were coming, friends that knew him from day one, teachers, the Cardinal Supich is there. They're going to have a mass. They asked me to MC. So they had like 35,000 in the ballpark, and it was a blistering hot day after it had rained early in the day. It was hot. My head, I have a picture of it. My head looked like a light bulb. And so it was unbelievable. And we emceed, and there's no doubt that Pope Leo watched that ceremony. No doubt in my mind. So afterwards, I'm walking around the ballpark, and I see these cutout boards of Pope Leo with a White Sox jersey on, because the White Sox, and rightfully so, were very proud of the fact he was a huge White Sox fan. So I said to myself, you know what? I got to get a Bulls jersey. And somehow, some way, I want to give it to somebody, or give it to somebody who will give it to somebody who will give it to the Pope. So we had this thing called Bulls Fest in August. And Bulls Fest is really for the fans and for artists and creative people, content people, 3-on-3s. And so when I was there, I said, you know what? I'm going to the Madhouse Team Store. I'm getting an authentic Bulls jersey, 14 with Pope Leo inscribed, just like a half sphere over the Pope Leo 14. So I get the jersey about a week and a half later, and it never left my sight. So I write a letter, and I write a letter to the Archdiocese and said, I'd like to, hand this jersey to the Pope. Never heard back. Then all of a sudden, out of nowhere in October, I get this letter from the Vatican. And it says, seriously, I've got the letter. And the Vatican says, hey, listen, they didn't say hey. They said, we've got a general audience with the Pope November the 5th. And this is no guarantees that you're going to meet the Pope. But, to, have an invite was great. But St. Peter's Square, hundreds of thousands of people attend this. And so I'm thinking, okay, I looked at the schedule. We played the Knicks on a Sunday in New York. And we had Philly was going to be on Tuesday. And so at home. So I told only one person with the Bulls about my plan. And that was my direct supervisor, Vice President Susan Goodnow. And I showed her the letter that I was accepted to go to a general audience, not a private audience, but a general. And I said, worst case scenario, I can get this somebody a 4th, 5th, 6th party to get in his hands. So what happens is I had 2-3 plane delays because of the air traffic controllers. It was just, it was so complicated with, whether or not they were working, not working. And I was delayed 3 times. I get to Rome on Tuesday. And there was a window of time where I had to stand in line to go through security to pick up my pass to get in the next day. So I'm waiting and waiting and waiting. And I go through 2 security checks and I get this envelope, and I open the envelope and there is a yellow ticket. And I said, what's this? And I'll tell you what, do you have 2 seconds? I'm going to interrupt this.
Yes.
Second. I'm going to show you something.
This is cool. And the
coolest
coolest thing about it is what a great story. I mean, here we have Chuck Swirsky on, the voice of the Chicago Bulls, gets to meet Pope Leo. I mean, talk about huge.
So this is the yellow ticket. So I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yes.
That's cool.
Okay. So I opened the envelope and this is the yellow ticket. And I said, what's this? I don't know the difference. Yellow ticket, white ticket, red ticket, Willy Wonka. And they said, oh, that's a yellow ticket and you're on the stage. I said, what? They said, you're on the stage, but there's no guarantee you're going to meet Pope Leo. And I said, oh my gosh. So I couldn't sleep that night because I didn't want to miss. I had to be back at 5:30 a.m. to wait in line. So I'm waiting in line and they open a special section, but I didn't know where I was going. So they have these security guards that look like, the movie Men in Black, where they had these black Armani suits, a crisp white shirt with a thin black tie with black sunglasses. And so I went up to one. I said, I've got this yellow ticket. Can you tell me where to go? And he looks and says, come with me. I follow him. I'm in the second row near the stage. I'm 10 feet away from the Pope when he spoke. So now I'm it's 2 hours before he speaks. The weather, it was supposed to rain. It didn't. Clear skies, 72 degrees. It was awesome. And out of nowhere, you hear this crowd and it's starting to swell and mount. And the Pope Mobile entered St. Peter's Square. And the Pope Leo would stand up, wave. He never got out of the Pope Mobile, but he would wave and then he'd make his rounds and go. It was almost like a maze. And then there is a ramp, and the ramp goes up from St. Peter's Square to the stage area. And so the Pope Mobile drops him off. He goes to the stage. He spoke for about 15 minutes. And then at the end, he went to special needs adults and children, prayed with them, went to the newlyweds, and blessed them, went to the Cardinals who had come in from different areas of the globe, met with them, and all of a sudden, the security person says, 2 rows, single file, and there you go. No cameras, no pictures, nothing. So I'm waiting in line. I got my Bulls jersey, and the moment has arrived. The security person taps me on the left shoulder and says, go. And so I make myself, this surreal. I mean, if somebody told me as a Catholic kid growing up when I was a little boy that I was going to meet the Pope, I would have said, you're nuts. But I went and I presented the Pope, and he was great. And I said, on behalf of the Bulls, I'd like to present an authentic Bulls jersey. And he looked and said, he goes, this is very nice. And I said, well, the Bulls last night, Pope Leo erased a 24-point deficit and beat Philadelphia. And I said, it's amazing. We're 6-1. And I said, we're in first place. And he goes, really? And I said, yes. So we talked about, I said, I'm disappointed that I couldn't bring you Aurelio's pizza. And I said, but honestly, Your Holiness, if you set up a Portillo's here in Vatican City, it would be a huge success. And so that picture you have on your phone, he's smiling because he laughed at my joke.
That's
so
awesome.
Anyway, we talked for about 2 minutes, 2.5, and then I was escorted off the stage. And when I say escorted, I mean escorted. They took me right out. Boom, I was done. You're done for the day. So I'm walking back 2 kilometers to my hotel, and like my head is like on a swivel stick. I couldn't believe it. And so I'm thinking, there were no pictures. No one's going to believe that I met the Pope and give him a Bulls jersey. And so I went back to my hotel. I'm trying to sleep because I hadn't slept. I have a flight coming in like 10 hours and back to the States. And all of a sudden, my phone blows up. Hey, we just saw, this Channel 9. Hey, we just saw the picture. I went, what? And what happened is there were drones, or there are people around the stage taking pictures, and the Vatican website put my picture with Pope Leo on its website of me giving the Pope a Bulls jersey. And so for the next 5-6 hours, everyone was calling me. And so then we come back, and these coaches that I were meeting, days and weeks after, they come and say, hey, like Kenny Atkinson of Cleveland. So we played Milwaukee and Cleveland in a back-to-back when I got back. And Doc Rivers, we were talking about the visit. Next night, so with the NBA coaches speak like an hour and a half before the game. And first it's the home coach and then the visiting coach for 15 minutes. So Kenny Atkinson of Cleveland, the game's in Cleveland, speaks first. I'm walking to meet for Billy Donovan's press conference. Kenny Atkinson sees me and he goes, did you meet the Pope? And I said, yes. And he goes, tell me about that. I said, take too long, like our conversation is taking long. And he goes, no, I got time. I said, what? He goes, I got time. I want to hear about it. So I told him what happened. He goes, that's amazing. So we played Cleveland like once or twice more time. Every time I see him, he goes, man, you know what? That's a great story about you and the Pope. And other people, were coming to me. So that was that. And so, it was great. And, all I can say is I hope the Pope comes to Chicago. I don't think it'll be for a while, but when it does, this city is going to go absolutely crazy because he's one of us.
Yeah. Who would have thought? That's tremendous.
If the Pope goes to Chicago, we got to find a way to get to Chicago.
We're going to Chicago. We'll be there. Don't worry.
Yeah,
we'll
absolutely.
sure.
And then maybe we get to present him with a Fire and Ice shirt. We
Let's
we
do
we
it.
have,
I
we
mean,
have to do it with Chuck though.
we
Chuck's
would
got to
do-
be
Chuck,
our man.
we'll present our Fire and Ice shirt. You can be with us, so we can all
Yeah.
represent our podcast, and of course, the
We'll
Bulls.
do a remote. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
We got to get
Great
multiple
story.
sales staffs on this now.
I love it. Great
Yeah.
story. Great story. Chuck, before we let you go, and I appreciate you being on for so long, we thank you not only for your time, but for being at my brother Matt's wedding. That was so cool because a lot of people don't realize that the wedding party was introduced by the play-by-play voice of the Chicago Bulls, Chuck Swirsky. And then, of course, after you introduce everybody, you give it away to Bill Wennington, your radio partner, and the Bulls theme song for their introduction is playing, and he gives a little speech. Talk about that's an incredible wedding to be at. I mean, to have you guys there, that was amazing.
Well, it was Bill. I'll tell you, Bill was fantastic.
Yes,
I mean, he was great, which doesn't surprise me. But it was such a special day for Stacy and Matt. And the thing is, we love both of them so much. Of course, Matt, traveled with us when he was covering the Bulls for CHSN and Xfinity and Comcast and whatnot, but NBC Chicago. But I can tell you, Matt is so well respected. Everyone loves Matt. And so it was very humbling to even get an invite to the wedding, and how Bill spoke. He was so eloquent about, what Matt and Stacy, what their union's about. It was great.
Well, I'll never forget you guys being there. It was wonderful, and certainly good seeing you again. We had lunch one time, and now I got to see you at the wedding, and finally got to meet Bill Wennington. That was tremendous. And I tell you what, we can't thank you enough for your time spending 40 minutes with us. I expected 15. Thank you so much for everything, Chuck. It means the world to us.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the invite and continued success. Thank you.
Thank
you so much, Chuck. Chuck Swirsky, play-by-play voice of the Chicago Bulls, spent 42 minutes with us. That's awesome.
That was awesome. I mean, just the stories, man. Just the sheer
Amazing.
amount of stories
Loved
that he's
it.
got. The fact that you can say you got one guy who, and I was surprised. I had to check and see how old he was, because whenever he's like, yeah, I was the PA guy before Jordan got there. Well, brother, that was 1984. That was 40 years ago.
Yes, he's been in the game a long time. He really has. And I mean, a
Yeah.
legendary broadcaster.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, you got to think about all the cool things that he's seen over the last, like you mentioned, 40 years. Tremendous.
We
Yes.
did see in the middle of that. I did not want to drink while he was talking about the Pope, but we got our red, white, and booze and lemonade from our amazing staff over here at Buffalo Wild Wings. It looks fantastic. Brandon, I know you got a little sip of that in there as well.
It's tremendous.
How was it before I take a sip
It's
here?
phenomenal. It's really good. It's very tasty. I think you'll agree.
Oh man, that is good.
Yeah.
That is really, really, that's a dangerous ass drink right there.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's going to be a good one right there. Okay, so Chuck gave us his thoughts of what's going to happen with the NBA Western Conference Final, Game 7 happening tonight in the middle of my El Paso Locomotive match that I have going on. So I got to find a way to get that on TV, while also finding a way to get Holly Holm and Jennifer Hahn or Stephanie Hahn rather, on the TV as well. What are your thoughts of what's going to happen tonight with the San Antonio Spurs on the road in Oklahoma City taking on the Thunder?
So I'm not just saying this because, it's your team. It's not my team. It's your team. But I truly do believe after that tremendous Game 6 win to stave off elimination, that the momentum is with the Spurs right now. And I think the fact that they won that double overtime Game 1 in OKC is certainly that tremendous confidence builder, knowing that they can win in that hostile environment. So I think it's going to be a really good, close, competitive game, but I feel that San Antonio is going to narrowly pull it off and advance back to the finals, and it'll be a 99 rematch, which would be pretty darn cool.
I want to say that you're right. I want to be there, but you know me, I go off of history, right? Yeah. Most of the time in a Game 7 setting, the home team wins that game 74% of the time, right? Like, that's just the way that it's set. However,
Wembanyama's there.
I'm about to say,
You know
whenever
what I
you
mean?
have an alien.
Yeah. And he made a great point about Wembanyama, and
Yeah.
I don't disagree with what he said.
And
he is an alien.
I've been saying it for a while. Again, the caveat there is if. That's a huge if.
Yeah, for sure.
If he can stay healthy, he has all the tools to be one of the greatest to have ever done it. Because we look at him now like we've never seen. anyone be able to do the things that Victor Wembanyama is able to do. That right there for the Spurs, to me, is their X factor. The biggest X factor that I think Oklahoma City has is experience. We have to remember the entire starting lineup for the San Antonio Spurs is an average of 22 years and 4 months old.
Tremendous.
Whenever you look at their next two players, it actually drops the average age of the Spurs down to 21 because it's two 19-year-olds that are coming off the bench for the Spurs. They have not been in this moment, and experience matters. That's why I feel that ultimately Oklahoma City is going to find a way to pull this game out.
Yeah, and I won't be surprised if they do. And I had a feeling you were going to pick OKC, and I don't blame you in the respect that you're not a real Spurs fan. No, I'm just kidding. But I mean, no, I don't blame you. I mean, it's a tough place to win a Game 7, and you're right. No, most of the time the home team prevails. I just think that tonight, the obvious X factor will be Wembanyama. He's never been in this particular type of a situation before, and this is the type of situation where legends are made, and I feel that his legendary status continues, pulling off this Game 7 win, and what will set up, to me, will be a hell of a finals. Will be a great finals.
Most people are coming into the Eastern Conference and Western Conference finals saying that whoever won the Western Conference final was going to be the de facto champion.
Not necessarily.
This Knicks team,
they're good.
Is really
they're
damn
really
good.
really good, and I mean they're very very impressive, and again their road wasn't an easy one to make it to the finals. I mean Cleveland was really really good, okay.
Yes.
And they swept them, so that wasn't ever close. And yeah, Chuck brought up the point about the rest, and I agree with him in the respect that you don't want to have too much time off, even though everybody and their brother is injured. But of course, once you get a little rusty, that's never a good thing. So they're jonesing to play. They're jonesing to start on June 3rd. A few days from now when Game 1 is going to take place. But nevertheless, this Knicks team is no slouch.
I've been looking it up the entire time just because I am optimistic. You know me, the eternal optimist, Mike Tipton.
Right.
I keep looking up to see how much tickets would be in San Antonio for Game 1. I was in Alaska the last time they won the championship, so clearly as far away from Texas as I could possibly be.
You going?
I was, 14, 13, 15 years old the first time they won it.
Okay.
So it's been like this weird random road. And if the San Antonio Spurs make it to the NBA Finals, I will be there June 3rd.
Okay.
I will find a way. Like I know that you always have a game.
What was the cheapest ticket?
They were not cheap.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean something like that. Even like a nosebleed's got to be ridiculous, right?
Yes. And for me, like it wouldn't even be, being inside. Like I don't care if I go inside the stadium. Like it'd be awesome to do that. But imagine being in San Antonio on the Riverwalk.
So you're just going to
celebrating the Spurs.
Yeah, well, that's your. Hey, if I'm a fan like you, why the hell not? Hey, you drove 15 hours to cover the draft.
Yes.
Okay, why not take an 8-hour drive?
Oh, 1,000%. I mean, that's the easiest drive I could do in a while.
Yeah, and I know you don't mind driving. You don't care.
No, mind driving.
Anywhere. You'll drive to the moon if you have to.
I mean, I would. I still want to find a way, Brandon, where I can get a company to help sponsor me driving from the northern tip of Alaska all the way to the southern tip of South America.
The tip going to the tip.
Yeah, tip. 3 tips together. We call it.
That's a lot of tips.
We call it the tri-tip pod.
Who doesn't like tri-tip roast? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Okay, guys. So we're over here, Buffalo Wild Wings, 655 Sunland Park Drive. Brandon, before we leave, let everybody know about the specials.
Bottomless apps, guys, $9.99. You get your fried pickles, your onion rings, your chips and queso. It's got a lot of good nosh. Of course, you can get the cheese sticks too. You add on a couple more people, it's like $2.50 each. Not bad. $2 off all tall drafts, off $3 shorty shots. Happy hour 3 to 6 p.m. daily, 9 to 11 p.m. every evening. Also $6 appetizers. Food is really good. We're about to eat like Buster's gang.
That's exactly what we're going to do. I'm a big fat guy. I am starving right now. I cannot wait to go ham on those bottomless apps. Everyone, I want to thank you so much for tuning into today's show. Chuck Swirsky, the voice of the Chicago Bulls, joining us as well, regaling us with some amazing stories.
Cool.
From Jordan to Vince Carter to the Pope.
It was awesome.
It was an amazing.
What a great show, man. We'll see you guys next week. That was pretty cool.
It really was.